on this. All right, so let's start our topic for tonight. Let me share my screen here now. Okay. So why is it that this is a very important topic? Because whether you are already in the field or you are still looking for work, you need the knowledge to be able to even understand what's happening. It's your everyday tool that you have to use. And sometimes it's confusing, even in the workplace. And a colleague, agile colleague, they don't get that, they don't always agree on that because everybody have their own way of doing things. But I will show you the way I do it. If I will break it down for you to understand it. You don't have to do it exactly the way I do it, but if you do, it's going to help you. So now, we will be talking about capacity and velocity calculation tonight. And when it comes to capacity and velocity calculation, at what point do you need that knowledge? Remember, every sprint, you have to bring in your capacity. So that means every sprint you have to be checking out and see what is happening with your team. So those are the things that you have to consider when it comes to calculating capacity and velocity. You want to know what is the sprint duration. Some sprint can be 1, 2, 3, or 4 week maximum. Based on the sprint duration, you want to know how to calculate them. You want also to collect your team availability. I will show you, and I will show you the tracker that I use to track my team availability. You want to know, you want to have access to the velocity chart, that you have it on your Jira or you have it on your Rally or whatever tool that you are using. You also want to know the focus factor. I will explain more about that, the team productive day, and understand the buffer or the load. So what does that mean? What is it that we talk about this topic so much? When we talked about velocity actually is what? It's just summarizing what the team have completed during the sprint. So those are the number of story points that was completed by the team during a specific sprint. As you can see here, these are velocity. That means when you see the job that were planned, this is the number of story plan. As you can see, sprint 1, number of story plan was about, let's say, maybe 17. Number of or 18, number of story completed is about 16. Here, sprint 2, number of story plan is about what? 13. Number of story completed is about 7 or 8. So the green mean completed. The gray here mean committed. So they plan for it, and this is what they deliver. So that is what we call velocity. Now, what do you need the velocity for? The main goal to have this velocity is to forecast, is to give you the ability to forecast for the next work. It actually doesn't qualify, it doesn't give you every data to rate your team in terms of competency, but it gives you enough information to be able to plan ahead, to forecast for the coming iteration. That is the only goal that the velocity have you to reach. Now, there are 3 tabs when it comes to velocity. You will see velocity plan, velocity, actual velocity, and then average velocity, right? So as I just show you, the gray one is plan. That means the team will come in for a number of story points. But the velocity that really counts is the velocity that they deliver, the complete story that they have delivered. That means the story were completed accepted by the PO. Then they call it actual velocity. Now, how do you calculate the velocity of your team? It's the average of the 3 previous sprint. You take the 3 previous sprint, you average them. That means you multiply them, like you sum them up, and then you divide by 3 to have the average. But if the team is still young, you can even go up to 5. You can go up to 5 sprints to get the average. We will talk more about that when we get into the calculation. Now, capacity, right? So what do we understand by capacity? So this is what we want to know: how much time the team have available for that specific work. Remember, you can have team members and they are not 100% committed to you. They can be committed to you 50% of their time, and they also have other projects going on with other team. Or you can have team members, they are taking day off. That means they won't be there all the time. They will be there partially. So you have to anticipate on that and be able to collect that. And what happened is in most organizations, they will tell you that there is 2 types of hours. 1 day of work is 8 hours. We all know that. That is the standard. But in more organizations, they call there is a way to call it. They call it productive hour. So they equal the productive hour, or the productive day equal 6 hours. That means they only count 6 hours for the development work. The 2 other hours is for anything else, like meetings, or company activities. So most of the time when you get into the company, they have their standard. It could be 6 hours, it could be 7 hours, depending on the company. But most companies will keep 6 hours. That means they give 2 hours to, the 2 hours is reserved for stand-up meeting, sprint, all kind of meeting that happen with the team, that the team member attend. So they have to complete their work within the 6 hours. Now, why is it important? Why do we even collect this? Let's talk about the sprint duration. We talk about that, I introduce you about that. That means when a sprint is 1 week sprint, what do we have? 1 week sprint means 5 days only. That means the sprint is gonna have 5 days if there is no holiday. 2 week sprint is 10 days. 3 week sprint is 15 days, and 4 week sprint is 20 days. This is the maximum. This is the longest sprint. But I will always recommend you to, during the interview, always choose 2 week sprint. If they ask you what is the length of your sprint, you say 2 weeks. That means 10 days, right? Now, we talk about the velocity. We go back into that. Now, what about the team? Oh, I put team twice. The team capacity or the team availability. We talk about that. So is the time that they have to commit for that specific work. Now, let's go to this focus factor. And those are the things that you need to know to be able to collect your data. Focus factor is what? It's actually just mean the velocity, the average velocity of the sprint. When you have the velocity, let me show you that, and then I will come back to this. So let me open my spreadsheet somewhere. Okay, so this is the spreadsheet. I was doing the presentation, but everything now is on your spreadsheet. And I tell you, you got to be very good in Excel. Try to be good in Excel. It's going to help you a great deal, trust me. So these are designed from scratch so that I can tell you what it means. Everything you see is there is a data that that direct this, right? So this, let's take an example. These are the sprint that we have. So let's say that we have about 5 sprint already. Sprint 1, the team planned for 50 story point. They actually completed 47 story point. As you can see here, they planned for 50, they completed 47. Sprint 2, they've planned for 55, they completed 53. Sprint 3, they planned for 55, they completed 49. Sprint 4, they planned for 45, they completed 48. And Sprint 5, they planned for 50, they completed 49. So if you want to have the velocity of this team, let's say that is a mature team, right? That means is you average, you don't pay attention to the one that was planned. You want to pay attention to the one that was completed. So if you take the last three, that means sprint 3, 4, 5. So 49 plus 48 plus 49, and you divide by 3, is going to give you this number. Here is how I track my day. So I have a tracker like this. Up here is my daily stand-up. Down here is the data for my sprint. Okay, why do I do that? Because I want to make sure that if a developer says something, I can follow up. I don't want to forget, right? So you see that here, I have drop-down menu. If the developer don't show up, I will put no show up. If I need to take a note, I can put note, and then I will say something like, need server upgrade. That can be a request that was made during the stand-up. So you see, let's say that today is Tuesday, we are during the stand-up, and developer 2 said that, oh, he needs server license. Let's take it like that. That he needs license for his server, I will put it here so that I can come back to it and follow up, or I will reach out to whoever has to give him that license so that the communication go through. This is how you track engagement, right? Because if he doesn't have the license, he won't be able to perform his job. And if you have 10 team members, you might not remember all their requests during the stand-up. That is why you need a tracker. Does that make sense? Please, if you don't get anything, stop me and ask questions, because this is extremely important. So let's say that when you have this note here, and then you know, maybe this guy here is sick. You put sick. Your job is to what? To go back now and check on him to see if he's feeling better. Remember, you as a Scrum Master or PM, whatever you are, you want to build that relationship. And if you don't track this and come back to it, you won't be able to remember what happened. Does that make sense? So you track this. If they have a blocker, maybe somebody have a blocker. Maybe the blocker is they are not able to, maybe, I don't know, the server is down. It's something that we can't control. But what happened? This guy is following up on the server that is down. You want to communicate with him. Hey, Mr. Developer 5, I heard that the server is down. Can you give me the update? Is there any ticket that you want me to follow through? This is what we mean tracking engagement, making sure that things are done. Now, not just that, you also want to collect their day off before the sprint planning. You want to collect, so you will say, hey, Mr. A, or whatever, developer A or developer 1, which day are you going to be up during this sprint? He will say, okay, I'm going to be up on Wednesday. You put it 0. That means he won't be there. Here you put PTO. That means he's going to be out. But here you put, if it's out, that means it's not going to be available, right? So this guy here, so the green, as you can see here, those are PTO. This is giving you an idea of the availability. So now you have the availability now. What do you do with that? You take that availability, you put it on the sheet like this. So this developer says it will be in for the 10 days. It won't be out. Developer 2 is going to be out for 2 days, but he will be in for the remaining sprint for 8 days. This guy is going to be in for 5 days, and he will be out for 5 days. So you see, So you put all the availability here. What do you do? When you sum out all this, he gives you what we call number of sprint days. Does that make sense? So that means technically we have 85 sprint days, right? That means we multiply the day of all the developers and with their availability to get this. So we have the sprint day. This is extremely important. That's what we call.
Georgette,
yeah.
We add or we multiply?
No, we add.
Add. Okay.
We do this. We sum out their availability. So you just sum out the availability. It gives you the number of sprint day, right? As a team. This is what they call sprint day for the team, right? Now, when you have this, you
is that
need
sprint
this.
Hour or sprint days?
It's days.
Sprint days. Okay.
Does that make sense to you? Because
yes.
this guy have 10 days during this sprint. This guy have 8 days.
That makes 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, 2 weeks. So you add everything now, it gives you the number of days, the entire day, because everything is going to be based on that. We will see where it's gonna help you. So when we have this now, remember we talked about our velocity. We calculated our velocity here, and we got 48. You ignore the 0.7. Just ignore it. Just keep 48. So we take the 48. We already have the team capacity, which is 85 days. This is days. Now, the velocity is the average of the 3 sprint is what? 48 story point. So this is in terms of story point. So how do you calculate the focus factor? So that is extremely important. Why do you need the focus factor? I told you that focus factor is what? Velocity divided by capacity is equal focus factor. And I will easily, for me, the easiest way to approach this is to understand that if in 85 days, the team can complete 48 story points, how many story points can they complete in 1 day? That's the simplest way to see it. So when you divide this, actually it gives you the story point for 1 day, right? So this is what I did. I'll key in my calculation. I divided this 48 divided by 85. It gives me 0.6. Please hold me if you don't understand this. So I divided this, divided by this, it gives me 0.6. So this is technically the velocity per day. If you multiply this by this, it's going to give you a 55. Now,
so how did we get 48?
Remember, we went here and then we calculated our velocity, which is the average of 3 spin.
Right.
Which is 48. That's where we got it.
Okay.
Now we came here now and we put the 48. Now we want to know, and we also add all the team availability. We have 85 and we have 48 story points. For us to know how many story points can the team complete in 1 day, we have to divide 48 by 85. It gives us 0.6, and we call this focus factor. And this focus factor, why is it important? It's extremely important because you want to distribute work to this guy. How will you distribute work equitably without knowing how much, how will you do that? Because they don't have the same number of days. So you have to find a way to weight the number, the quantity of work that you have to give them. That's why you are doing the capacity. So now, before we do that, so here what happened? We have this, and we don't just do the simple math. If we multiply this, if we take 0.6 multiplied by 10, it's going to give us 5.6 story point, right? is going to give up this story. That means this developer A can have up to 5.6 story points during that sprint. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
No. So let's do it with you. So if I take this and I take 10 and I multiply by my focal factor, which is already here. I don't need to go all the way down here. I can just multiply by this and I close my parentheses. You see what I mean? And then you go now, you drag this down for those who are new to Excel. So when you key in your formula, you put your cursor like this, you drag it down, and then you apply automatically to order. So you move the formula so that he can automatically calculate for order. So now we finish our calculation. And so normally this guy can take up to 5.6 story point, right? Now, you don't stop there. Do you give him all the 5.6 story point? It is risky. Do you know why it's risky? It is risky because it can call off, it can become sick during that sprint. It can have an emergency or a new story can come in. Something can happen. So you want to give some room to accommodate that emergency. That's what we call buffer. Or you want to give them a story up to a certain percentage, let's say 90%. That's what we call load. Let me go back again to my load. So if I come back to load and buffer here, where is this again? Here is where we are. So see the story, each developer story as this container here. So if you take, this is the container for those stories. If you give them 100% of the story based on their capacity, then they will be booked completely. That means they have no room for emergency. Is it safe to do that? Not really, it's not advisable. So you want to give them some room. Depending of your company or you as well, depending of your team behavior, you can give them something between 10 to 15% buffer. So this is what we call buffer, right? This is the room that you leave. Or you can, or I would prefer load. Why? Because load, when you put the load, then it gives you exactly what you have to give to the developer. So, or if you are reserving 10% buffer, that means you can give this guy up to 90% of his commitment. You can commit up to 90% of his time. Does that make sense? That is the difference between load and buffer. So if we go back now to our calculation here, we decided to give 90%, up to 90% buffer to the team. That means we could key in our calculation. We just want 90% of 5.6. So technically, we will just give 5. Usually you don't like those comma, you don't like decimal number. So this guy will have about 5 story points. This guy will have about, even though here I'm calculating with exact number, but normally when he reach 5, you stop. Does that make sense? So that's how this is the load. Now, how do you track it? How do you track this load to make sure that developer A, B, C have what they need for that specific sprint? I wish I can open my computer and show you, but I'm not supposed to. But this is an example, okay? I hope you can see it. Let me make it a little bit bigger. So this is on Rally. So on Rally, here there are names. Let's say 4 people are here. There are 4 developers, right? And this guy here, you see, you as a Scrum Master, you come and put in his capacity. Like this guy have up to 54 hours this sprint. This guy have 54 hours this sprint. This guy have 54 hours this sprint. This guy have 60 hours this sprint. So whenever they they add the story on they add the task under themselves. He give you the percentage of the load. This is the load. So this guy have like 40% load. That means he have a lot of room. He might have more than 58%, right? So, he have more than let's say 48 because we want to keep 10%. This guy have 80% load, which is okay. This guy is overloaded. So if you see somebody who's overloaded like that, then it's a red flag for you as a Scrum Master. You have to say, hey, Mr. So-so have too much. How can we distribute this story so that other people can, so that it can accommodate other? You see, these guys did have 45%, but these guys have 144%. Does that make sense? All what you do is that when you put this velocity here, and whenever they put the story under their name, it automatically calculates the load for you. This is the functionality with Rally. I don't really know how it works with Jira, but I guess it's the same thing as well. Any questions so far?
Yes, Miss Georgette. So how do you determine the buffer? Based on what you determine 10%, 15%, 20%, how do you determine that you just put it out like that?
It's just a best practice. So because they already have 2 hours. So if you give them 10% or maximum 50%, don't give them 20%.
Oh,
but give them like, you see what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
they already have the 2 hour that we already removed.
Mhm.
Plus that 10%, that means you give them enough room for them to accommodate certain things.
Okay.
And the 10 to 15%, it's up to your discretion, and it is determined by the behavior of your team. Is that correct?
Really, it's determined by, because they are the one picking the story, actually. Because during the planning, you will say, Mr. A, do you want to take this story? Or then we say, okay, I'm going with this story. And then when they create a task under their story, under the task, they put the hour, and he goes like this. Let me show you an example. So let me make this bigger for you to see. It's a little dark, but so let's say this is 40% buffer. So you see here are the story, and these are tasks. You see this, where you see D mean in development. So those are tasks. And each task here, these tasks have 2 hours. This one have 6 hours. So you see that 2 hours was assigned and 2 hours was, they are still working on it. They have not completed it yet. So when they complete it, this is going to turn to 0. And I don't know if you guys are seeing what I'm showing you. Let me get my annotation here, because this is extremely important for you. So what I'm talking here, you see this? So this task here, it could be like create a password. One task is going to take him 2 hours, and he's still working on the task. So he still have 2 hours remaining. This one 6 hours, he still have all the 6 hours remaining. This one 6 hours, still have all the 6 hours remaining. So when he finish working on this, when this move to complete, you see here is D, P, that means in development, in progress, and complete. When you move to complete, this hour here becomes 0. But this hour here stay, because this hour stay, this hour becomes 0 automatically. That means he finished the work on this specific task.
This program is Rally. Is that correct?
This is Rally, yeah.
Okay.
Even Jira work the same way. So that's how you are able to assign the task. So that's why you do this. So you do this because there we go now and assign themselves tasks, and then he's gonna look like this one. If you don't, I just expanded this, but actually it looked like this before you expanded. It looked like this, and then you underneath of this, there are tasks. You see this one here is if you are doing, for instance, if you are in the Scale Agile environment, you see that everything is planned ahead. During the PR planning, they already, you and your team have already planned a little bit about what it has to happen during all the 6 iterations. These are different iterations, right? Now I change the word. And so I was saying sprint, I said iteration because I'm speaking save word now. So you see, this is iteration 1, iteration 2, meaning sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3, sprint 4, sprint 5. So they actually, it take like 6 sprint for 2 weeks. So what happened? This is the same load that I talked to you about, but this is at the team level. So sprint 1, this is the team velocity and this is the load. That means they committed for more work than what they are supposed to commit. That's why it flag red. That already tell you that it's danger, because they don't want you to commit for more work than your capacity. They actually want you to commit, maybe stop at 85, 80, 90. That is the best practice, right? But sometimes they commit because they are not sure. They are not sure about the story. They don't know how big that story could be. They commit for more time and they realize that actually it didn't take that long. Does that make sense? So they just commit to make sure that they give themselves room as well. Any question on that? This is extremely, extremely helpful. They will do their own way, but truly, most of those guys, they are not scientific. So they just do it, they think one-sided, they don't see the whole picture. But if you see every picture, you want to make sure that you assign the work proportionally to everybody. And this is how you do it. Why is it important? Let me tell you this, because it really happened. Sometime at the middle of the spring, we raise your hey, Miss Rosie, can you please, this team member just left the team. Can you please, we need to have a new velocity for this team. If you don't know how to do it, how will you do it? You see what I'm saying? You have to calculate there in front of them and say, hey, okay, let's try how. So I always recommend have your formula key in. Like, for instance, like this, guys, are you planning to be out? Are you planning to be out? Are you planning to be out? When they tell you that they are out, you put their PTO in. Then from this PTO, you come here now and have this list and put them based on this. You already have that. And then when you meet now in the room, the first thing that you have to do, hey guys, let me share with you the velocity for this sprint. So now you have to do the calculation because you know that their capacity now. You have to do the calculation to come up with the velocity. And tell them, hey guys, this is what we have for this sprint. And you key in each developer ability to complete their sprint. You already have it here. You know that this guy, if he have to take more than 4 story points, it's not good. You will remind him that, hey, Mr. 2, you cannot go up to 4 story points. You won't be able to make it.
Okay.
That is your job. Because you want them to deliver their commitment on the commitment.
Yes, I understand that part, but the case where somebody left, let's just say you have a new opportunity and you leave, then is that possible? Like, let's just say the person leave at the middle of the spring.
Yeah, that happened. So if the person leave at the middle of the sprint, it's really a crisis, because normally it shouldn't happen like that. Because always the person have to give you 2 weeks sprint, 2 weeks notice, right? But it can happen that somebody have an emergency or just quit or whatever. Or
even let's just say even emergency, because let's just say, okay, you took those hours and then your child got sick, your wife got sick. Exactly. You are in the hospital, you can't come anymore. And maybe you'll be there for 3-4 days.
Correct. So what happened?
Yeah, what happened?
Okay, that's a very good question, Rosalind. So what happened is you will discuss with the team. Remember, we left the buffer. You remember the buffer?
Yeah, the 10%.
That's where that buffer will come into place. You see why emergency can happen?
Yes.
So we tell them, now, guy, Mr. A just left the team and he has 4 story points. Do you think we can accommodate him? And they said, yeah, we still have a room, we can take it. If they cannot take it, okay, how critical is that story? If it's very critical, can we prioritize the story? Now you talk to the PO, hey, Mr. PO, which story do you think we can leave behind in case and he give us less impact on our delivery.
Okay.
PO will tell you now that, hey, yes, they will prioritize things. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
Because it happened every day. So that's why they pay you that much money. They pay you that much money to solve problems. And those problems happen like every day. Like one team member, Travel, of course, he was on PTO, but the problem is he finished his development and the testing wasn't done. The testing wasn't done and he had to travel for the next sprint. So we moved the testing because that is mainframe developer, they have their way of doing things. So they have to move the testing to the next iteration. And when they were completing the testing, that guy is not there. So when they were doing the testing on his story, they found a lot of defect, what they call bugs, right? So now those the other guy have committed themselves already. They already have their commitment on their own story. But now we have defect that was created by this guy who is traveling for the entire sprint. It's going to come for not only 3 days. What do we do now in this case? Right? So you as a Scrum Master, you have to come up with a solution. They come to you, hey, what do we do in this case? So first, you have to find a way, okay, let's see who can take on this story. Because we need to get this story done. It has to be on our top priority list. Then from there also, we want to pass the lesson. And the lesson that I have created is that, guys, you see now that we need this teamwork agreement because I suggested the team working agreement and they didn't like it. Well, not that they didn't like it, they pushed back, right? But I created the template anyway. And I said, they said, I know you've been working and everything is going smoothly. I know that crisis will come. So you anticipate. I created a template and I let my boss know that, hey, I created a template for my team regarding the team working agreement. Of course, right now, so everything is going smoothly. But this crisis happened now. So now they came out and said, you know what, before somebody travel, he has to make sure that this checklist is checked, that he have to do this, he has to do. So now I take it now, I created a checklist and I said, yeah, this is part of our team level agreement, team working agreement. Then you pull it for them for the next time. So we discuss more during the retro about that. And then those are already the elements to build the team working agreement. This can be a story that you tell during your interview. They don't, what I'm telling you is what those interviewers is looking for. They don't look for miracle. They just want you to tell them exactly what is happening every day.
And the team agreement is like what? It's like something that you make them agree to be able to fulfill their availability that they agree with.
One of the Scrum requirement or whatever Agile requirement is to have a team working agreement. If you are working as a team, you want to agree on certain things. Like if I'm not in, what do I do? If I have an emergency, what do I do? Who is going to cover my back? Things like that. It has to be agreed first. Because if he's not agreed, he just go like that. What happened to his own story? It's going to mess up the whole work, right?
Yeah, the
so
agreement
team
is
level agreement could be.
It's like a backup plan.
It's not just backup. You agree on the way you guys are going to work as a team, right? On every area. Okay. When it comes to sharing tools, how do we agree on? How do we even agree on? How do we even consider a story done? Even the definition of done is part of the team working agreement, because they have to agree at what point do we do the documentation. When you finish your story, do you say that you are done and you have not yet finished the documentation? When you finish the documentation, where do you store that documentation for auditing? So you guys have to agree on those things. So you as a Scrum Master or Agile Delivery Lead, what happened? You are fast, you have the knowledge and you want to influence them to make that decision. Like I told you about this, I first introduced that to them. They didn't like it. Actually, I created the team working agreement on Miro board. I used Miro. because I want it to be interactive. They say, oh, so far we've been working like this and everything is going smoothly. I said, no problem. But anytime, any day you need that, know that this board is here available for you and you have editing permission. And if you think of something that you think that the team need to do, please come and put it on this board, right? One, he cover you up as a professional. Second, you let your management know that, hey, I have done this. Many people, you will get into some workplace, they are so careless. You will see some Scrum Master don't even do much because normally nobody tells you what to do. You have to find out what to do, but nobody tell you what to do. So what happened is most Scrum Masters are very, they just settle for less. They just, when they finish their ceremony, they don't do anything else. I don't want you guys to be like that. That is why I always show you the tracker is not, something that you will not even find it anywhere, unless you are maybe my student and you will see that. So, but you want to show efficiency. You want to be efficient in what you are doing. You want to facilitate process. You want to make sure that you bring value. Many times, my manager came to me and said, I want you to coach other Scrum Master about this. I want you to coach other Scrum Master about it. I didn't do it to coach anybody, but he noticed that, oh, this girl is doing things differently, right? So you want to stand out as a professional. That's how you can identify yourself. Don't just settle for less. That's actually my advice here.